Hello, bioeconomy people from all over the world. My name is Mark Rushton, and I am one of the founding members of the World BioEconomy Forum. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from the UK, and I joined Jukka Kantila and Teresa Presas around about 4 years ago when we set the World BioEconomy Forum up. And I have to say we're delighted with the progress that we've made so far. And it's fantastic to be here in Belém, absolutely loving it here. So it's my pleasure to introduce the next segment of our session, which is where we'll be talking about leadership in the bioeconomy. And that's such an important topic when you have a new idea or a new sector, as the bioeconomy is. How do you drive it forward? How do you get it known by everybody? And it's quite an interesting thing, because when people hear about the bioeconomy, they start thinking about it, and then they realize, it's actually quite simple, really. So it's my further pleasure to welcome our next keynote speaker for this segment. And I'd like to welcome Onno van de Heuvel, Global Manager of United Nations Department Programs, Biodiversity Finance Initiative, otherwise known as BioFin. Nice to see you, Onno. Can you hear us? Excellent. Nice backdrop you have there. Onno is the global manager for BioFin, which is an initiative that works in 40 countries to design and implement national biodiversity finance plans, utilizing over 150 biodiversity financing solutions. BioFin designed the catalogue of biodiversity finance solutions, the first ever classification of financing mechanisms used around the world for biodiversity. Onno, welcome, and away you go.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And of course, it's my pleasure to speak to you from Istanbul, Turkey, although I would have much rather been there with you. Economy strategies, and how they can in particular help to verify if bioeconomy strategies are also biodiversity positive. And at BioFin, as was already mentioned, we are helping countries to design national biodiversity finance strategies. Things look a bit more clear because you have protected area systems, you have public budgets going towards them. And it's no surprise that from the $140 billion per year that's spent on biodiversity, around $120 billion is coming from public budgets. But when we look at the private sector and what they're doing for biodiversity, it becomes a whole lot more complicated. But the bioeconomy concept can be a very useful frame. But then how do we make sure that also the bioeconomy strategies and interventions are biodiversity positives? Here we can make use of biodiversity financing mechanisms as the lens. And for you today, I group them into 3 different categories. First of all, the ones that can help reduce negative impacts from finance that's currently harming nature. Second, the ones that are, so to say, biodiversity neutral, but generate very important benefits like jobs, livelihoods, revenues, and all the other benefits that we've already heard about earlier today. And the third group is those mechanisms that can result in biodiversity positive investments. Now let me start by the first category, the mechanisms that can help reduce negative expenditures. And if you look at the green circle on the left, you see how much you're spending in terms of public expenditure on biodiversity every year. That's $121 billion per year. That looks like a pretty good amount for our nature. And of course, it is a good amount. But let's compare it to some other numbers. So first of all, we have to compare it to the actual needs. And we have baseline data on this from countries as well as for the world. As you can see now, the needs are around 5 times as much as our current expenditure levels. So we definitely need to increase biodiversity positive expenditures. But now let's look also at another number. How much are we spending on things that harm nature? The OECD has calculated this is around $500 billion per year. So suddenly, the $121 billion doesn't look so large anymore. Because we are spending 4 times as much on things that harm nature as what we are doing on things that benefit nature. And now the world is coming together, and they've already started this process around the Convention on Biological Diversity. And one of the targets they're discussing is repurposing subsidies that have a negative impact on nature. And they quite want to reverse these 2 figures. And the question becomes then, how do you do this? This is something that our program BioFin is working on. We are currently working in 27 countries to at least carry out the first analysis of which of those subsidies have a negative impact on nature, and of course, what is that impact? And they take this initial analysis and they prioritize a group of them that they want to redesign or repurpose, hopefully into something that's biodiversity positive. And a number of front-runner countries that have already done this analysis, they now started to formulate their action plans. And they're looking at things like subsidies for chemical fertilizers. They're looking at things like I'm hearing tax breaks, VAT tax breaks for exemptions for pesticides, loans for dairy farms that are based only on productivity criteria, and so on. Things that don't really take into account nature. And a very important early conclusion from this work was that countries don't really have good systems. That when a new subsidy comes, they analyze what are the impacts on biodiversity, be it positive or negative. But of course, there are many other mechanisms that can be used to reduce negative impact from current finance that harms nature. A quite well-known example is biodiversity offsets or compensation payments, that when we have a negative impact on our nature, that at minimum we compensate it with a positive impact elsewhere. Carbon offsets and markets has been also mentioned already. And of course, these are multi-billion-dollar finance flows. And most importantly, I also want to mention strengthening systems of environmental impact assessment and strategic environmental assessment. Because from our work, we have seen governments don't have good enough systems in place to analyze the real biodiversity impacts because they're so local and so specific of major investment as well as policies and subsidies. But now let's move to mechanisms that are biodiversity neutral. Well, of course, no mechanism or intervention is purely biodiversity neutral, but let's say at least having a very minimal impact. And a good example here is working on protected area fees. Take the example of Rwanda. They have a fee for gorilla tracking where people are prepared to pay $1,500 to spend just 1 hour with gorillas. So it's an example where we have a very minimal impact on biodiversity and a very high revenue. And to look at this kind of fees, you can also do it at the national level. And that's what we have done in Botswana. When we did our analysis in Botswana, we found that the protected area fees hadn't been updated for a long time and they were quite underutilized. So there were already very elaborate fees in place, but they could generate a lot more funds. So we helped them to redesign a number of fees, I think around 20, things like camping fees, vehicle fees, entrance fees, camera fees, the whole system, and helped to come up with a new system. And this new fees can generate more than $1.5 million per year in new revenue for the country. Now I have to say that these calculations were pre-COVID, so that amount could be quite a bit lower. but nonetheless, they will result in an increase per visitor of the revenue that they generate. And another example I want to highlight comes from our work in Kazakhstan, where we work on ecotourism. And the government has asked us to come up with some kind of incentive or tax break so that companies can convert their tourism operations from conventional ones into something more sustainable as ecotourism. And this could be a tax break, but we are still in the early stages. But a very promising early result has been that already Kazakhstan this year adopted new legislation to outline the basic concept of ecotourism into their legislation. And of course, there are a number of other mechanisms that can be used, things like concessions and public-private partnerships, and as well mechanisms for access and benefit sharing, because it's really critical that we put in place in every country the right legislation for local and indigenous communities to share with, to receive a share of the benefits of the resources they've been conserving and protecting for a long time. But now let's move to the category of nature positive investments. Here I want to give an example from our work in Mexico. In Mexico, we helped to design an accelerator fund for bioeconomy. And this fund has actually two different windows. One is a sort of incubator, and the other one is an accelerator. And there's a really interesting case funded by this accelerator window to design another fund, a revolving fund, to support small growers of coffee to transition from conventional coffee production to shadow coffee. And of course, the shadow coffee, having so many different plants on the coffee farm, and having the trees and associated birds and insects, are a much richer ecosystem and have much higher biodiversity value. So it's quite clear that once they make that transition, it's a very much a biodiversity positive investment. Now, the way that this second revolving fund works is that the small grower can lend some money to make initial investments for the transition. And once they have earned their new revenue, because it's a premium product, they can pass back the money that they've loaned, and another community can borrow this money from the revolving fund. And there's other activities related to native varieties of maize and also organic vanilla. And here you can see in a diagram sort of how that works. And the idea is to work on improved capitalization of this fund and scale this up to around 600 local producers. And of course, it's clear that this would not only be a biodiversity positive investment, but also one that generates additional income for local communities and helps to reduce poverty. It's quite sort of all SDG investments. And there are quite a few other mechanisms that can be used for catalyzing biodiversity positive investments. Of course, there's a range of biodiversity positive subsidies. There is the system of payment for ecosystem services that's very well established in Latin America, countries like Mexico, Brazil, and Costa Rica have already very advanced models where this is applied. And there's also sort of the private sector variety where a company directly contracts farmers for sustainable practices. And green bonds or green sukuk can be used to attract new capital, impact investment, and we shouldn't forget about corporate social responsibility. That's something we're working on in India to design projects under CSR that can benefit biodiversity. Now, I hope that this gives an overview of the things we can do to couple financing strategies with bioeconomy strategies. And so we are working on bioeconomy in a couple of countries. And to make this link even stronger, we have a few suggestions for your consideration. First of all, as you understand, there's no sort of one strict definition for the concept of bioeconomy. But it will be great if a future definition explicitly refers to the objective, amongst others, next to sustainable use, to also try to achieve nature positive effects where possible. And second, to really identify what are the nature positive benefits, we're really going to need in the future some kind of taxonomy or catalog or tagging system that will help to classify the impact, be it a very high biodiversity impact, low, neutral, or perhaps negative. And last but not least, we already heard that every country will follow their own approach to bioeconomy strategies. But there are certain steps you can take, and there's, I think, a bit more additional guidance we can provide for countries that want to start this venture and may not have a lot of resources, while still holding to this bottom-up approach that has been used so far. And if you want to know more about this kind of work, there's a couple of resources you can find on our Biofuel website. So with that, I'm coming to an end of my speech, and I really hope that this forum can be another milestone for our world to further rethink our relation with nature. Nature has given us a great deal with so many resources we can use free of charge. But we have to make sure not to overuse them. And in fact, as we have already done so, work a bit harder to bring back some of the nature we have already lost. We also need to reward local communities who have guarded these resources on our behalf for many generations. I would like to thank you for your attention and wish you a productive conference. And I hope to see you at a future event. Thank you.
Onno, thanks for an excellent presentation. Thank you very much. This is so she's an Amazon woman that was taught by her mother and grandmother the secrets of the plants, acting with projects involving biotechnology in the Amazon, from where she researched a brand new economy, the bioeconomy. So let's watch it for a minute.
Sou paraense, né? Nasci em 1971. A minha história, desde criança, foi envolvida com ervas amazônicas, alimentos e preparo. Então, tudo isso tem a ver com o meu passado, com a minha infância. Fui criada pela minha avó, e a minha avó, como amazônica, ela era uma miscigenação indígena, tinha negro, tinha português, e ela me tratava, na minha infância, com vários produtos da Amazônia. O maior laboratório que a gente tem é a natureza. O mais complexo, o mais rico e o que nos traz vida. Então, o meu objetivo a partir daí foi entrar na linha de pesquisa onde envolvia a parte de ciência e tecnologia de alimentos. A missão como professor de repassar esse conhecimento, e na universidade nós temos a chance de ter, né, alunos provenientes de comunidades quilombolas, os povos indígenas, e também toda essa miscigenação nossa brasileira que faz parte da nossa tradição. Aliar isso à tecnologia para que eles possam implementar inovações dentro dos setores tradicionais, dentro dos conhecimentos tradicionais. Você alia isso com todas as ferramentas científicas e tecnológicas, você junta esforços, você gera sinergia e você cria um caminho positivo. E a Amazônia ela só vai conseguir, né, uma Amazônia com uma pauta de ciência, tecnologia e inovação feita pelos amazônicos, é claro, com todo o apoio, né, de pesquisadores ao redor do mundo, mas é importante que as soluções saiam da Amazônia. Você criar uma rede, né, uma rede positiva onde a ciência se alia aos povos tradicionais, ao pequeno produtor, e isso traz um impacto socioambiental. Aí sim, com um bloco forte, aí sim a Amazônia vai estar mais protegida, porque vão ter mais mente e massa crítica pensante para poder conseguir aliar emprego, renda, desenvolvimento e proteção à biodiversidade. Considerar todos esses fatores é a base para a gente pensar o nosso futuro, né? E manter em pé essa floresta. Estou plenamente feliz, não faria outra coisa. É amor, é missão, é responsabilidade. Mas tudo se faz aqui com encantamento.
Excellent. So the bioeconomy is about so many different things. So we're now moving on to the CEO panel, which is one of the highlights of our program, of a program with many highlights in it actually. Global industries, along with all types of businesses and brands, are becoming increasingly important as consumers are looking to them for reassurances when using products that are not harmful to the planet. These individual companies are carrying more and more responsibilities, as we often see on social media, are becoming more accountable when something goes wrong or pollution takes place. And it's certainly a challenging space to be operating in across all industries. So we've got some fantastic company CEOs, fantastic companies and CEOs from those companies today. So it gives me great pleasure to invite the CEOs that we have on the stage. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Teresa Presas, who's going to be moderating the panel. I have to tell you, you've already heard from Teresa today, but Teresa is famous in the bioeconomy in Europe. She was formerly the Director General of CEPI, which is the Confederation of European Paper Industries, which is a hugely important association in Europe, with many members of pulp and paper companies. And she's very active in the bioeconomy, and we are delighted to have Teresa with us on the forum, both on the advisory board and on the board of the company. So Teresa, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And now I'd like to introduce the panelists on stage, please. Christiana Deschira, CEO of Klabin. She could come up live in person. Fantastic, thank you. And Dr. Joachim Schoenbeck, the board member of Andritz, please. We have two people today, which is great, live on the stage. Earlier, we had a lady who was on her own. So, guys, you're doing well. And online, we have Dr. Sarah Butteker, who's head of Global Public Affairs, Science and Sustainability at Bayer. And online, also, we have Celso Tacla, CEO of Latin America for Valmet, and Dr. João Paulo Broto Gonçalves Ferreira, CEO of Natura Co. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Is that working? Obrigada, Frederico. Thank you, good afternoon. It's been quite a long day, but a very interesting one. Thank you for our panelists on remote and for you who are here physically. So let me start by introducing our guests. So we have Sarah Buttinger, and she is from Bayer. She leads the Crop Science, Public Affairs, Science and Sustainability, and is a member of the executive leadership team for the crop science. Then we have on the screen as well. No, that's not me. Okay, no, it's not me, and it's none of our guests. And then we have Celso Tacla, who is the area president of Valmet South America. And Valmet is a leader global developer of technologies and services for the pulp, paper industries, and also energies industries. We have João Paulo Ferreira, who is the CEO of the Natura company, the largest Brazilian cosmetics multinational. Here on stage, we have Joachim Schönberg, from Executive Board Member of Andritz. Andritz is an international technology group that provides innovative solutions for a large number of industrial sectors. And we have, last but not least at all, Cristiano Teixeira, the CEO of Klabin since 2017. And Klabin, for most of you know, it's the largest producer and exporter of paper packaging in Brazil. And interesting, Cristiano is also a member of the business leaders at COP25. 26, yeah. So let me just say, in our declaration that we will distribute on Wednesday, we have a few very important principles for our bioeconomy. One is collaboration for the transition. Climate neutrality supported by sustainable bioeconomy strategies, new business models based on bio-based resources, and communicating the benefits of a bio-based economy. I hope we will come back to those as well. Well, the panelists here are all relevant, very relevant economic operators. So we're going to touch upon some of the topics that I just brought. Let me start with you, João Paulo, on collaboration. The huge challenges that we face today, and I don't have to enumerate them, are not and cannot be solved, not even addressed alone, individually. As you say yourself, life is a chain of relationships. I like that. Everything is interdependent. So collaboration is the name of the game. Can you tell us a bit, how do you collaborate within the value chains in which your company operates?
Sure. Ladies and fellow panelists, all the audience, thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Indeed, you have just spoken to this one. The first belief of Natura that it's about independence. Life is a chain of relationship. And we have been there in the Amazon for more than 2 decades. Back then, that was the decision of the company to create differentiation based on biodiversity. And so we went to the rainforest to learn. And collaboration perhaps is one of our most important learnings. Such complex problems cannot be addressed by any single agent at all. We have learned that we should work along 3 axes, 3 main axes. The first one is about institutional strengthening. The second, science and technology. And the third, building the value chains and the different elements of the value chains. So as you can imagine, those 3 axes cannot be tackled individually. It requires collaboration from governments, all the different powers and different layers, local, regional, federal, NGOs who are present on the ground, academia with science, the private sector, and moreover, the communities, those who live there in the middle of the forest, who have all the knowledge associated with the richness behind biodiversity. And that's the reason why, throughout our learning journey, we adopted social biodiversity to describe what we do there. The work with the communities starts, moreover, more than anything, with anthropologists and sociologists, so that they are organized as a unit, which eventually becomes so powerful that they turn themselves into real entrepreneurs and political agents. And that is perhaps the key. There are so many challenges, as you said, logistics, investments, science, and so on. But in the end, if all the value that is discovered, captured, structured, distributed, if that value does not come back to the communities, then there's no incentive to continue to defend the standing forest. Right? So we need them to be perhaps the most important catalyst agents of all this equation around which the various agents should collaborate. So in the end, if we do so, it's possible to combine economic prosperity, social development, and environmental protection. And the history of Natura and the Natura Co group proves the point. So it may be a good business for everyone, but requires a lifetime dedication. I'll come back to some other points later, perhaps, Teresa.
That's a vast program indeed. Thank you very much, João Paulo. Cristiano, Klabin's operations and products are entirely based on the bioeconomy. Then bioeconomy and biodiversity are very tightly linked. And in your companies, the biodiversity objectives are very dependent also on local development programs that you are putting in place to increase conservation of natural resources. So my question is also for you. Tell us about collaboration, partnerships to bring along also not just stakeholders like João Paulo enumerated, but also your peers. How do you do that?
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with your friends. This relationship that we have to develop from the owners of the company, from the investors of the company, to local communities or suppliers or peers, it is something that is improving, but we are not there yet. Let me give you one example, and bringing what you said, peers. We have all great companies all over the world developing with partners like my friends here. But today there is a frontier between what we do, which is paper for package or package by itself, that we develop, for example, for Natura or other customers, and friends from technological partners are helping us to bring innovation, etc. But this bioeconomy bringing new, let's say, challenges from scientists to explore exactly what the wood can bring to us as a solution, for example, for biobarriers to replace, like we know, polyethylene or any kind of plastic. And just to make a comment which is important here, plastic is very important from the 70s to the whole society. It's transformed many of the let's say way to behave with, for example, weight of the products, and the plastic brought us lighter solutions, etc. But nowadays we know that the recyclability rate of the plastic is very low, less than 10%. So how peers of the pulp and paper industry can get together to develop the biobarriers? Everyone is trying to do your part, but as just to one very important, let's say, notice that we have to bring, we have to create barriers for oxygen, for any kind of exchange of the atmosphere, light, shelf life, etc. So we have to do that together, because pulp and paper industry is not there yet. We are trying, but I think we can accelerate that development. So just to summarize, as the relation that we have with the investor, as the relation with that we have with suppliers, as the relation that we have with local communities, etc., I think peers needed to develop a better approach to develop more our industry.
I understand. You mentioned barriers, and you also mentioned low recyclability of packaging, but barriers also need to be recycled. So are you also looking into that, and with whom?
Exactly. Barriers, we have this, let's say, I like to bring the frontiers words, because first of all, you have to understand the wood by itself, and then you go to the chemistry from the wood, the bio solution for that, for the purpose that you want. At the end of the, let's say, of the chain, you have the customer, but between the customer and ourselves, we have the customer who will, the consumer, the industry, who will transform, who will do the application of our paper. And that application is probably at least 50% of the development of the final product. It's on their hands. So technological solution, organization between the paper producers, and a way to develop faster with the industry, with the customer, with the end user, to get as soon as possible in the solution that if you go to any big brand of the world, they are announcing the their level of reduction in use of fossil package, but you don't see the same partnership in development if you consider the time that you have to bring the solution. So I'm not a pessimist, but I'm just trying to bring the reality that we have to be faster.
We can see that. We'll talk about the end users a bit later on. Let me turn to Celso. Valmet works in a number of sectors, and your strategy is to promote coordinated action. So, as an equipment supplier, what has been the result to your clients of collaborating with other businesses, for example? So we still are on the collaboration aspects. Maybe other economic sectors in the bioeconomy? I mean, how are you collaborating in the bioeconomy with your suppliers, with your along the value chain, maybe with startups?
Okay, Teresa. Thank you for all of the colleagues in the panel here. I'm really happy to be here discussing this important matter with you. But to start with, and this is very important question. This is in the core of our mission there in Valmet, that is to convert the renewable resources into sustainable results. And that's, it's not only the basis that brought us here, but also what takes us forward. And in this sense, we cooperate with the customers in the pulp and paper business, the energy sector, and also with other business, like you said, and then we team the industry and the sector, also with universities and the other research and development institutes, universities, and a long chain, because this is about collaboration. And then, what we achieved so far, and this would be a very long way to go, but for the pulp business, we have developed solutions like for high-yield pulping, because all starts like that, helping in all the chain to save raw materials from the forest to the transportation to the end products, and then also reducing the water, energy consumption, increasing the generation of power. Then for the paper business, and then it's for the paper makers, but also bringing savings to the users. That could be some intermediate users or the final users. Like for example, for the tissue business, we developed the texturized tissue machines, these so-called NTT machines that are saving also raw materials, to produce with the same bulk. And like we have today here, Cristiano, and they are having in Cabin, and together we are working also to develop new products to produce lightweight papers, to save fibers, logistics, and then also the barriers for the water, and to allow the use of paper in the food industry, for example, like you commented just a while ago. And then together with our customers and these institutes, we are developing a plenty of solutions for other sectors, like for example, the biofuels, and this we could go into the transportation fuels, like the second generation ethanol solutions, where we have cooperations with companies in Europe and in Brazil as well. We have also in other geographies, developing the processes and the equipment, and also other technologies like the catalytic pyrolysis that we developed together with petrochemical companies. And then a great and very interesting effort that is being done nowadays is the development of the solutions for the textile industry. And then, of course, some years ago, and since 2008, we delivered 16 major projects all around the world to produce dissolving pulp, and this is the way to replace, for example, the cotton that uses a large amount of water, 10,000 liters per kilo of cotton, in a more sustainable and wood-based textile. Then we have new solutions for recycling textiles. This is a company called Renew Cell that we are working together in Sweden, and then also the development of textile fibers produced with microfibrillated cellulose. That is a new technology, and we are delivering and working together with Spinova and Suzano that recently formed a joint venture to produce also textiles, fibers and textiles with based on the wood, with a lot of savings compared to the existing technologies. Then, not to extend it too much, but we could talk a long way here about the lignin extraction. That is about 25 to 35% of the wood, and from that component we can make like bioplastics, adhesives, and chemicals like phenol and BTX, replacing fossil fuel carbon fibers. And this we are also working with several companies, including companies here in Brazil.
Thank you. It's what Cristiano was saying.
So it is a lot of things that we are developing, in the packaging business as well, and then in the energy, and many new solutions that we are only able to develop together with the customers and in collaboration with others as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Celso. Yeah, it's what Cristiano was saying about using all the parts of the wood, of course, and that makes also a whole range of partners and collaboration. Thank you, Sarah. The bioeconomy brings together the principles of biology and biological resources. That's what we've been talking about here today. And bio speaks about the biorevolution. In practice, how do you see the commonalities or synergies between the biorevolution and the circular bioeconomy?
Thank you. It's a delight to be here with you all, and it's a great question. So, if the biorevolution refers to this intersection between life sciences and digital technology, it's a super broad term, but think of it as examples like accelerating how fast we can innovate new vaccines, or the production of lab-grown meat, or the genetic engineering of microbes to create sustainable aviation fuels, so we can drive down our carbon emissions as we continue, hopefully, to get back to flying. The biorevolution is not only creating new products, though, it's actually accelerating innovation, which I think is a really critical point in the conversation we're having today. So at Bayer Crop Science, for instance, all of our plant breeding decisions are now entirely AI driven. So we took this old business of plant breeding, which is a very slow business, and now we combine data about the plant's genome, data about the plant's traits, and about the environment that the plant is going to be grown, and we can run these through and get a much, much faster process. Our R&D teams are now leveraging over 2 quadrillion calculations in cloud-based algorithms. So this stuff is just progressing incredibly fast, and it means that our R&D processes are faster, they're more precise, they're more predictable, and they're more deliberate. And I think that's a huge piece for how we innovate in the bioeconomy. But the other part the other answer to your question is that the biorevolution has to be grounded in our planetary resource constraints. So it has to be embedded into or intertwined with the concepts of the bioeconomy. So, for example, we have lab-based meat. Does lab-based meat have a smaller carbon footprint than conventionally grown meat, or a bigger one? The answer, it turns out, is it depends. So you can see that the innovations in the biorevolution still have to be based in this understanding of constraints in our planet and living within our planetary boundaries. The one thing that we do know in the business of agriculture is that we absolutely have to grow more on less land with fewer inputs. And that intensification of agriculture is what we're doing with the tools of the biorevolution, and it fits squarely into the bioeconomy.
So the bioeconomy is still facing a lot of constraints. Is that what I understood you were saying?
I think the bioeconomy, the principles of the bioeconomy create a set of constraints that we need to innovate towards. So the idea that our resources are limited and we need to live within those boundaries, that we need to provide livings for the rural populations that exist in the areas where the innovations are coming from. There's all sorts of principles that are embedded in there, and I think the biorevolution has to be sort of grounded in those principles.
Yep. It's like an old and a new concept, both, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Joachim, Andritz, it's a passionate and innovative engineering company, right? So what are in your company the innovations to advance the circular bioeconomy strategies of your clients?
Teresa, thank you for the kind words about Andritz. We try to be every day, and I think our customers have severe challenges today. They are challenged with decarbonization, challenged with circular economy, and at the same time with digitalization. And we believe, being a technology supplier, we should bring solutions for all these challenges to our customers, and we believe we can do. There is so much possible, even in I would say, rather old and matured industry like the pulp and paper industry. There is so much potential, and we are happy to be innovative there, and we appreciate a lot that we find innovative and brave customers like Klavin, who like to take the journey with us, yeah, to go to the next level. And let me give you a short story. I mean, everybody who has visited a pulp mill might have faced some smell with everybody who is not working there, does not like, who works there knows it, and he liked it very much. So this sulfur is taking out. Now, together with Klavin, we are implementing a new technology, collecting these sulfurous gases from the mill, converting these sulfurous gases into sulfuric acid, which Klavin again needs to run the pulping process. So we take it out, we bring it in a circle. Klavin does not need to purchase at high cost sulfuric acid, and the environment additionally has a benefit because there will not be hundreds of truckloads necessary to be brought. Implemented. I hope we will start up soon. And this shows how much is possible. And I fully agree with Cristiano. He says everything goes not fast enough. There are so many ideas, but we have to go step by step. Everybody has to take the share. And at least we are ready, and we are happy to see that our customers are as well.
Thank you. But not so much time if we look at what we've been talking here about the climate change and deforestation and all the problems that we are facing. So Cristiano, we are approaching COP26, not 25, we just talked about it, and you will be participating as a member of the Business Leaders Group. How will you argue the great potential of the bioeconomy to contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation? When you will be...
Thank you, Teresa. And just to make a link of the last question, when I say to be faster, and I think you got the point, more because of the demand of the behavior of the people than what we, let's say, we could do together, the industry as a whole. I mean, we are trying to do as much as we can, but today, you send a WhatsApp message to someone in Finland, and in 2 seconds, he's answering you back. If we go back when we started to work, a few years ago, I'm not going to open how many, but we used to send a message and wait days to get the feedback. So everything is faster.
We had telexes.
Telex, exactly. I started with telex. So today everything is faster. So this movement of let's say, bio solutions, I don't know how yet. I mean, we have to find a solution, but we have to be faster. So it's something to talk about it. Talking about COP26. So the president of COP26, Mr. Alok Sharma, he just made a statement in Paris 2 weeks ago, actually 1 week ago, of what is the expectation of COP26. This is a very open discussion. You have very different opinions what to expect from COP26. So I'm going to, let's say, keep myself in the demand that I got from the organizers, and that was bring as much as we can companies, private sector, to the race to zero. So that was the goal that these 10 business leaders around the world, we are 10 CEOs, and we are trying to talk to the whole supply chain to convince them or to show them that the climate solution impact will come. It depends where you are. It depends what you do. We have to face that the way that the warming is coming from the last 200 years using fossil solutions for energy, we will not get there. When I say get there, is 1.5 degrees from the pre-industrial period. So my point is, we have to, the 10 CEOs of the Business Leaders Group, we have to convince the private sector that we have to move as fast as we can through technology, through new solutions, through behavior, etc., to neutralize our emissions. That was our main goal. So I'm just keeping myself in that specific solution because the discussion is still open.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. But bioeconomy is one of the solutions, precisely. And that's what will be interesting to hear in those discussions, where it comes in, how is it embraced? Because it has not been so much pushed forward and so much discussed. I see that João Paulo is nodding, and you have an interest, a big interest in that, also in the biodiversity conference that is going on right now in China. So there's a number of fora right now to be able, forum where you can argue as business leaders, be it in a group or not, because I believe that a number of companies might understand that, but then it's too broad, and there's a lot of changes, a lot of financing coming in, and a lot of changes as well, right? So João Paulo, you have an interesting vision, sustainability, that you call commitment with life, and that is a vision for a 10-year period. 10-year period is tomorrow, right? So what are the main priorities in your business models that you can bring to your peers in those big gatherings?
Right. Well, to get into the details of our program, let me step back and share with you my vision as regards why biodiversity has not been pushed as hard as carbon neutrality, as you just said, Teresa. And I truly think that we need to shift as quick as possible from this stop damaging agenda to healing or regeneration agenda, as quick as possible. And one of the enablers for that is to come up with global standards of valuation, monetization of biodiversity and biodiversity externalities. Because I think that may drive the debate as intensely as the monetization of carbon has done in recent years. But I'm afraid that we may miss the point of the interdependency if we don't push this biodiversity monetization agenda. And I truly think this is a super driver for innovation. And that's how we in the Natura Co group see the social environmental challenges. We set to ourselves that we should transform social environmental challenges into business opportunities, because we are a for-profit enterprise, right? So how to translate those challenges into business opportunities? And Natura originally designed in 2014 its 2050 sustainability vision. setting very ambitious goals that we would not even envisage how to achieve. But those became drivers of innovation and differentiation. More recently, as the group grew, bringing new companies to be part of this challenge, we set ourselves a shorter-term goal, the 2030 Sustainability Vision, Commitment to Life, which is now shared by all the component companies of our group. Natura, Avon, The Body Shop, and ISO. And this vision has been built on 3 pillars. The first one is fighting the climate crisis and halting illegal deforestation of the Amazon. The second pillar is about human rights and human kindness, which include education, violence against women and girls, diversity, generation of income and distribution of income. And the third pillar, which is about regeneration and circular economy. Now, we need to look at all of those in combination. And let me give you an example. When it comes to the communities in the rainforest, right? We currently work with 7,000 to 8,000 families, so 30,000 plus people there, with 39 bioactives, and the activity that we develop in the region helps protecting 2 million hectares of forest. Now, we set ourselves a goal to reach at least 55 bioactives by 2030 by increasing our area of protection to 3 million hectares. But there's more, because a couple of years ago, we worked with Professor Michael Porter's team to measure the social progress index of those communities, where we learned that income is, of course, an important component to develop those communities. But then we got into sanitation, electricity, potable water, transportation, and other elements such as this. And we adjusted our business model to help driving those other elements also in the communities. So one way of doing that is to try and increase the value that we pay for the goods. So that's the reason why we don't pay only for the goods. We pay for associated benefit sharing, for traditional knowledge, access to the genetic assets there. But we also develop our carbon neutrality projects there in the same communities. So they end up making 3 times more money than they would just serve. So,
you need each other.
That requires again, collaboration, but requires one to attribute value, monetary value to the biodiversity. Otherwise, we may stick with carbon neutrality and discover a couple of years later that we are not regenerating all the damage that we have done so far.
It's metrics, absolutely. You get what you measure. We'll know that, yes. Joachim, We Care, which is your program, combines all of Andritz environmental, social, and governance strategy and goals. Now, it's a different world than we were talking. We're talking about biodiversity, but side streams are often a material for bioproducts, more and more, in fact. So therefore, it's an interesting bioeconomy solution. Do you approach it as a bioeconomy solution or as a business product?
You can call it what you want. Today, being here, I call it a bioeconomy solution for sure. Yeah? But we have we have a plan, we have a role in the society, we can provide technology. We are not producing mass products, So we cannot, in our own factories, we can only do limited impact, but with providing solutions, we can do a lot. And we have, as an example, we have one target given out for our engineers and developers, what we call it Circle to Zero, and we want to develop a pulp mill, a waste-free and emission-free pulp mill. So we want to eliminate all waste, all emissions, and get all side streams either closed in a circular way, like what I just explained about this non-condensable gas, or make a useful product out of it. So both options are available, and it's amazing. We have put together a group of, I would say, mainly very young people, and they came up with more than 25 brilliant ideas what can be done, yeah, what there are options, yeah, and we are now exploring that in a more detailed way, what is economically feasible, in which country, for which application, and so on and so forth. And I tell you, there is so much energy going on, and especially the young engineers, they love it so much, because this is exactly what comes into play for them, doing something with a purpose, yeah, that we are sure that within very soon, yeah, we have, I would say, good sustainable processes, yeah, which can close, yeah, the open loops for the pulp mill processes. And I mean, just for the people listening now, the pulp mill and pulp and paper mill is already very much a closed loop in a technical way, but still, yeah, there is still a lot to do, yeah, and with millions of tons produced each year, yeah, it will make an impact. So this is where we see ourselves, yeah, and where we believe we can really bring a benefit, yeah, to our clients and then also to the society.
Thank you. Let me move to another subject. Sarah, you and João Paulo have something in common, which is the land, right? Can you tell us, so the agriculture in your field is both a source of emissions, but can also be part of the solution, right? So Bayer is developing and implementing a number of tools to further science-supported nature-based solutions. Do you have results of the contribution of those tools for reducing emissions from agriculture and from land, for that matter?
Yeah, that's completely right. Agriculture must be a part of the climate solution. But I think, harking back to my colleague's comments on biodiversity, I think agriculture is a part of this bigger question. You know, what are we doing about the future of the planet? You can't separate out greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. It's all integrated. How are we going to feed this growing population with nutritious, affordable food and live within our planetary boundaries? And you just can't decouple the climate from food systems or biofuel or biodiversity or forest protection. But even with all those trade-offs, I think the direction we're innovating is really clear. We know the benefits to our farmers of improving soil, compensating them for the practices that improve the soil carbon, lowering the carbon footprint of overall in agriculture, lowering environmental impact, increasing biodiversity, improving water conservation. All of these things are connected on the farm, and they all are things that we're innovating towards. So right now we have an enormous engine targeted at solving these problems. We have 1.2 million acres under our carbon farming programs around the world right now, 650,000 acres just in Brazil after only a few months of the program. It's very exciting, and our approach is to take it straight to the farm to understand what farmers can do, what they can't do, how do we compensate them. Then we've got carbon farming across Europe and Australia and Vietnam, even in India, where the methane coming off of rice paddies is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So all of that complexity that we've got and the tools that we really need, whether it's for monetizing biodiversity, as my colleague was saying, or it's monetizing carbon, we have to figure out how to meaningfully measure and report and verify in agriculture what's happening, how to do that at scale. So not do it so expensive on every farm and to such precision, but how to do it at scale. And then we have to figure out how to deliver the value to the farmers so that they can start making these sustainable changes. And those two things are, I think, some of the massive innovations of our time, and we will crack them. So it's a very interesting and fast-moving space.
Certainly an area where there's a lot to act and a lot to improve, right? We're talking about emissions, and Valmet estimates that 1% of its CO2 emissions come from the company itself, 4% from suppliers in the value chain, and 95% from its clients. So you told us already in the beginning some of the actions that you are taking, but it's really, you have announced a program to a carbon neutral future, but there is a huge gap between all those emitters, let's put it that way. So how to address this huge gap?
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Well, it's just, we have a very comprehensive climate program that is part of our Sustainability 360 program. And this climate program was launched in March this year. And you're right, we estimate that 1% of the CO2 emissions, they come from the company itself, from our own operations, 4% downstream from our suppliers, and then 95% from the customers. Of course, this is based on assessment in some industries. It can vary a lot depending on the type of industry that is using the technologies. And this should be like that, more or less. And for example, our program, it covers all these three topics. We have emission reduction targets and concrete actions for the whole value chain to cover the supply chain, the own operations, and the customers' use of the technologies. And these targets, they were approved by the science-based targets. And I can give you some examples. For example, for the supply chain, there we aim to reduce 20% of the CO2 emissions or reduction. And this is increasing the share of recycled steel in products and support the high CO2 suppliers to reduce their emissions. So we are assessing also how much they are emitting per ton of steel produced. And then also, it covers many other things like redesigning the solutions to light-weighted steel solutions. And then in the own operations, since it's already the minor contributor, but there we aim to reduce 80% of the total emissions in 2030 compared to the emissions in 2019. And this is by replacing fossil fuels by renewables and purchase CO2-free energy. And then when it comes to the use of the technologies that is the most important for us, it's where our customers are using the technologies. And then we have this is split in two different areas. So we want to further reduce the energy use in our current technologies by 20%. And this is by, normal or continuous R&D work. Valmet is investing like 70 million in R&D every year, and 35, more or less half of this money goes for, environmental and this type of solutions that we are just bioenergy, bioeconomy.
Okay.
And then the other part of this target is to enable our customers to produce 100% carbon neutral production. And this is more than net zero, in their operations. Is to produce pulp and paper free of fossil fuel. Yeah. And this is becoming like in the pulp mills. This is becoming more. We are already delivering plants like that. We just are delivering now and starting up a plant where we have a biomass gasifier, for example, and this replaces the gas that would be normally burned in a lime kiln. So this is the first one in South America that is starting up now. And then besides this, we will and we want and we will develop new technologies to enable entirely carbon neutral pulp and paper production also when the customers are using carbon neutral electricity. So these are, in a nutshell, the program that we have, and it covers, the three pillars of the program.
Yeah, we're talking about energy. I suppose it's one of the main sources of emissions in the pulp and paper industry. Let me move to another subject that might interest a number of you. Besides your own efforts that are quite considerable from what we heard in this very short period of time, how can policies, public policies and goals, objectives accelerate the circular bioeconomy? Cristiano, would you like to start with this?
Yeah, sure. And starting in a way that it's kind of a dramatic topic, because we, from the private sector, we know that we cannot solve the world solution. We cannot solve the sanitary solution for a small city. We cannot solve the solution for 3 meals for a kid in a full-time school per day and bring education for the population, etc., etc. So we, from the private sector, we are not able to do that. So state, we need you. Without law, without regulations, things are communities like in COP26, for example, where we are going to be together and trying to bring what we have been discussing for 50 years, like Minister Teixeira said today. I mean, that brings us to Stockholm. So we have been discussing climate change for, actually it's not 50 years, more than that. But the states, the governments, the regulations, everything comes from them.
Yeah, but business is not known for liking policies and regulations. So how, maybe João Paulo, you can answer this. I mean, Cristiano is saying we need regulations, but I mean, I come from the industry side and we never liked regulations. Why do we want it now?
We need to level the playing field.
Very good.
So that companies who are leading the way, or countries, you name it, agents which are leading the way should be better positioned, because in the end, consumers, or the population in general, we cannot split really there's a false split between the role of a citizen and a consumer. Every single act of consumption should be an act of citizenship. So consumers not only are interested but they have the right to understand what the products, the full social environmental footprint of what they're consuming, isn't it? And I guess that very soon, a very few years from now, consumers will judge companies which are not carbon neutral, which are not promoting regeneration, the same way they would judge today companies that use children labor, for instance, right? So in order to accelerate that change will happen anyway. That's my opinion. I'm an optimistic. However, I don't think that we have the time or the luxury to allow ourselves the time for that to happen organically. Hence, the regulations. I'm totally in favor of affirmative actions that promote that leveled playing field.
Sarah, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I think we've heard quite a few times in this panel the speed, this urgency. It just takes collaboration across both public and private. We're not going to solve problems this big in the time we're out of time, and we're not going to solve them without that collaboration. So I think that's a huge piece of what we need. And I think the other part is at scale. How are we going to shift the regulations, for instance, around crop insurance that may need to change if we're going to get regenerative ag really at scale, or create carbon banks or any of the other policies that are really in the purview of the public sector. So I think there's a lot of potential to do an era of amazing policies. I also think there's a lot of potential to get it wrong. So I think it's a very exciting time to be in the public-private space.
Yeah, they certainly are complex as well. Joachim, your company is operating in the whole world, and how do you see? Do you everywhere, or is it in specific, more specific places?
Yeah,
One size fits all.
I would say the laws of physics and chemistry are the same worldwide, and we definitely do not discriminate regions. But on the other side, the economic and the social background of different countries and their different needs. And we need to tailor our solutions according to these needs. And what just has been discussed in the panel, that incentives and regulations are different in different worlds, which make different solutions more or less attractive. And this is how we are, let's say, managing the needs in the various parts of the world. And I think that is a fair trend. If we invest our own money to develop, we make sure that what we develop is feasible without any incentive, so that the incentive given by certain regulations makes the economy better of that process, but not that it makes it viable, because this is a very risky thing, not only for us, but also for our customers, because, governments are changing, ideas are changing, and the investments we are looking for, they have to be sustainable for 10, 15, 20 years and more.
Thank you. There's one issue that we didn't talk about, and we listened to some of it in the previous panel, and that is digital technologies. Now, we don't have much time, but maybe before we have a round of last questions, Celso, you would like to tell us, you know, how you're using digital technologies precisely in this area of sustainability, or is it something that's still not applied to this area?
Yes, thank you, Teresa. Yeah, I think, you know, one could not say that the digitalization and the remote solutions and all that comes to like this industrial internet, or, you know, you cannot split this also from what we are talking here today. So, for example, if you can support a customer remotely, if you can improve their process performance with solutions like automation, autonomous mill, or mill-wide optimization, you know, with this type of solutions, we are also improving the operations, the performance, saving raw materials, saving chemicals, reducing the use of fuels and everything, you know, and making it possible to produce better products with less materials. You know, all in all, you know, and all the savings could be coming from here, and the quality improvements also will be coming from here. And this in the production itself. But of course, by using these remote solutions, we can also support the customers, avoiding traveling. So everything is connected, Teresa, and we are doing full use of this type of digital solutions and industrial internet. And there is a clear connection between this and the development of a cleaner world and solutions.
Thank you. We don't have much time left. We didn't talk about one issue that is very important for all of us, education, for example. We didn't get there. Before we ask if there is any question from the floor, I would like to ask each one of you, you know, this bioeconomy is very important, collaborative, innovative activity and model, economic model. How do you see the future of it? In short, of course, because we don't have much time. How do you see the future of it, the bioeconomy really as such? Maybe one trend that would take us further there, or how do you see it? Very short. Cristiano, would you like to start?
Yes, I'm very optimistic, at least for pulp and paper, because this is a circular economy, totally. So we are improving every day on new solutions for customers. Our industry is aligned with the mega trends of planting trees, stocking CO2, etc. So I'm very optimistic. I think that we were never so aligned with the mega trends as we are nowadays. So I'm very optimistic.
Good. That's very good to hear. Joachim.
Yes, I fully share Cristiano's assessment. I think it's a great future, and I think pulp and paper industry can be one of the centers, of the kernels of that development. And I also believe that pulp and paper will grow into textile and will really do a lot in that area where a lot of fossil energy-based products are still in use.
Thank you. Shall we go this way? João Paulo, please.
Right. Well, the Brazilian Amazonian value chains for biodiversity amazingly represent less than 0.5% of the already existing global market for biodiversity. Isn't that unbelievable? But that shows also that Brazil has an enormous potential to be one of the global leaders in the low carbon economy and biodiversity. And we are on the edge of the creation of a global carbon market. So we should not decouple both subjects and as much as possible influence that carbon solutions prioritize nature-based solutions focusing on regeneration and compensation, so that biodiversity will follow and will follow that trend.
Good, thank you. Sarah?
I am also an optimist. I think you have a panel of optimists here. I think we're really in a very different era now, in which there isn't a person living on Earth who doesn't understand the effects of living outside our planetary boundaries at this point. And that means that the drivers for change are not academics and NGOs or foundations. We've reached the point where the critical drivers for making these kinds of things happen are politicians, they're financial institutions, they're investors, they're consumers, and those drivers are incredibly strong. So I am excited that we're driving in the right direction with a powerful force. We just have to get there fast.
Very good. Celso, would you like to have the last word? Quick one.
Yeah, these mega trends, this resource efficiency, like the climate change and the increased environmental awareness, the increased importance of the sustainability and the corporate citizenship, this digitalization that we just discussed about, all this together. So this is a very strong driver. And then to answer your question directly, how I see the future of the bioeconomy, I see that the bioeconomy is the future, and the future is the bioeconomy.
Well, on this very optimistic and positive note, I would like to thank you very much. I would have liked to continue this discussion. As I said, we missed a number of issues, but time is limited. So thank you so much, and please join me in giving our panelists a warm applause. Okay, Mark, you're not done yet. Maybe there are some questions from the
There was
audience.
one question. Are we okay to have one more question?
Yes, one more question, yes.
Quite a simple, straightforward one for all of you, which is when it comes to R&D for new bioproducts for your customers, who's driving the initiative? Are customers asking for new products, or are you creating them for them? Just a quick one. Each. Maybe.
So, who drives R&D?
May I start? No, I'm going to leave the floor to João Paulo, like he turned his finger, but I just want to bring a solution that is what we call Eucaliner. Eucaliner is a paper lighter than the normal kraft liner, which is usually made by Pinus, and we are making by short fiber. Printability is much better, etc. And this is a solution that we are bringing to customers, but it's very with what the customer needs, which is lighter product. So there is a combination of the two. So I leave to João Paulo.
Well, as I mentioned before, Natura selected biodiversity as its main point of differentiation. And we drive that. The cycle is pretty long. Sometimes we research some species for 10 years, 12 years, or even more. It starts with understanding the traditional knowledge, but then we have the finest science, genomics, proteomics, green chemistry applied to turn that ingredient from nature into a powerful active, which is unique in nature. So we basically drive that, and then we explain that to consumers that don't know that existed at all, as you would imagine, all those difficult names of those ingredients, they really didn't know, but when presented with the benefits, they fall in love with that product and are willing to connect to the whole system back to the forest.
Yeah, it's a perfect collaboration for this R&D. The customers come with their requests, what they want, and we develop solutions, what we believe is possible with today's or tomorrow's machines. And sometimes the one customer brings the idea and the other believes it's so good that he actually is the first one to build it. So it's a perfect example of circular economy. Everybody benefits.
Everybody. Okay, would you like to continue? Sarah, I think we need to.
Company commitments, like a 30% drop in environmental impact in our farmers' fields. But then the consumers are pulling. So the value to the farmer will change over time, and we want to be there to provide the solutions to the farmers. So it's all of the above.
Yeah, seems like you're all in agreement, Cel, so I suppose you have the same. Who starts first?
Yeah, I think that this example that Christian, a nice example of the collaboration, in the whole supply chain. Like he was telling about the collaboration with the customers, and then there was the collaboration between Klabin and us that were delivering this machine and testing how it should be built in the pilot machines and so on together with them. So that's a perfect.
But we didn't have time, and the audience was kind enough to fulfill my wish. So once again, thank you so much, and have a nice evening or a nice morning. And
Okay, I'd like to now bring Jukka up to the stage and keep Teresa on the stage just for a wrap-up for day one. Okay, wow, what an event today. There was a lot going on. We had it all. We had excellent speeches from governors and leaders, high-level panels, financiers, CEOs. That CEO panel, this is brilliant. They're talking about bioproducts, bioeconomy. So it's all good. All that was missing was singing and dancing, but I think that's going to be tomorrow. I don't know. So we had some prominent speakers, Jukka. What are your thoughts on the day today, the first day?
I think we have first of all thanks to all to come in here and online viewers of this program. I'm sorry about this short delay in the beginning, but I think that we managed to wrap up that very well this day, and I feel really comfortable now that this really makes sense to having this forum in the various locations, like here in Brazil. As it was said in one of the presentations, you really need to have come here to sense what's all up here in Brazil. That's the only way to do it. And I think we have again a good results. So first thing doing today was that there was signing the first biostrategy in entire Brazil. So you all witnessed that. So be proud about that. And I hope that that will pave the way that we will see more these kind of biostrategies which are then unfolding not only in Brazil but also in Latin America.
Teresa, any comments?
well, I totally agree with Jukka, of course. I think it was a very good day. I think we touched upon the main elements of the bioeconomy. Of course, we just touched the basis because it's what it is, but and we will continue tomorrow. So I think this establishing this connection, this dialogue, if you want, with this part of the world will make us all then go to another part of the world and get it all together. But this is a very good start. I think it's an excellent start. As we've been saying all over, bioeconomy was invented in the Amazon.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Any other comments about the day? You're the founder, day one, first time outside of Finland. What would you say?
I would say that, okay, today we have covered two pillars, only the first two pillars. And I feel that we have had a very exciting dialogue in between the participants, in between the viewers and the speakers. What a marvelous panel we just have here, and please stay with us. Tomorrow we will carry on. There will be two other more pillars which are very, very important. And like in this last panel, they were already discussing about the bioproducts. And tomorrow we will start with the bioproduct around us, because our thinking is that it's not only talk. We need to bring up some showcases that what kind of services, what kind of products they do exist in the bioeconomy world. So please join tomorrow also that then you are hearing that how to make this bioeconomy more tangible to all of us. Because once we are knowing that what kind of services and what kind of products they do exist within the bioeconomy, it's easy to you to make choices that what is your preference. And that's the way that we can then making even the bigger movement out of this bioeconomy. And why it is important, then we have this fourth pillar, look into the future. Because our thinking is so that, when we then, make more these bioproducts are viable, we are choosing the renewable, sustainable products, and that's a way that we can then mitigate the climate change. It's not only the replacing fuel-based, let's say the energy solution, it's also the products what we are wearing, like these clothes or plastics, whatever. Whenever you are choosing, please choose then the bioproducts. And those kind of stories we are hearing tomorrow.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. You've been a great audience, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you.